Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're on episode number 126. Today is March 26th. My name is Craig Perales. Joining me, as always, Benjamin.
It's officially summertime, I think. We're hitting the high 90s finally out here, and it is hot.
Dude, the other day it was still in that kind of weird zone where it was still windy enough to where you could put on like a hoodie or something like that. And then the next day it was instantly like fucking 100 degrees. I was like, God damn, this weather needs to either stay consistent or shift already.
Dude, the other day, because I have to wear like long sleeves for work, it started off at like 50 in the morning, but by 1 it was already like 87.
Ooh, well, we're gonna go hit up that. Well, this morning, because I went and cleaned up the house a little bit and I threw some trash out. It seemed pretty nice outside. How was it when you were coming in?
It felt fine.
Okay, because we're gonna go to that Renaissance fair later, and I'm like, dude, please either don't be windy or don't be hot as shit.
It definitely wasn't windy because I had to get gas.
Yeah, the last 2 days have been like kind of like a nice calm before the storm, I'd say.
No, today is a pretty good day. You can definitely hit the water.
Nice. So, with that being said, guys, before we dive into the show, if you're watching us on YouTube, guys, give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and if you can, share the video so we can get more people to watch it. If you guys are interested in following us on any of our social media, check out our Linktree link, which is in the description. And if you guys are listening to the audio-only version of the podcast, feel free to listen to it wherever you can find it. But Anchor is the host and home for us, so it will redirect you to everywhere else that we're actually connected to. And if you can, leave us kind, hopefully 5-star reviews so we can keep the audience growing.
Help us get there, because the more we can do, the more we can give back to you guys. Personally, my biggest goal in my head is I'd like to hit 10K this year, but I would love to do it before the end of the year, and that's pretty modest goal.
Get the ego on you.
I find myself to be slightly interesting.
Hey, the optimistic as always. So, we like to drink beers on the show, guys. Feel free to drink along with us. If you ever want to submit a beer, do it in the questions, or you can email us at lastcallproductions@gmail.com, and we will try to find it. So this beer is actually one that I picked out. It's getting to the point, 126 episodes in a small town. It's getting harder and harder to find new beers that we've never done. So
beers that look like shit that you don't want to grab. Yeah.
So I was walking through and I saw this is the Shiner StrawberryBlonde. I've never heard about it before, never saw it before. The score that it got on Beer Advocate. Look, we're finally dipping into things that aren't in 90s and 80s anymore. So this is a 79 status, which they gave it as an okay. It's from Sportzel Brewery in Texas. It's a blonde ale, American. It sits at a 4.3%. Hey, it's a nice strawberry beer. It's okay. It's okay.
It's way too sweet. I definitely think it's too sweet. I wouldn't have one of these. It almost reminds me of like an Angry Orchard with like how sweet it is.
But with less bite though. Because Angry Orchards can kick you in the butt too.
I was going to say, I feel like the Angry Orchard would have tasted better than this.
I
can't believe that Asahi got a lower score than this.
Well, I liked it because, it's not just strawberry. It has like that blonde in it too. So it's not just like bittersweet. Because I think you're feeling more of a sweetness than I am. Where this one, I feel like it's blended out okay. It is saying that the status is active, but it is showing that it's a seasonal beer. So, I guess you only have to deal with this once a year.
I think it just tastes so bitter, but it feels so sweet.
So, guys, jump down below if there's a beer you want us to find. We will try to find it, and we will try to drink it. So, with that down out of the way, guys, let's move into what are you up to, where Andrew and I take a quick second to talk about what we've been playing, what we've been watching, if there's any cool trips we've got coming up. So, Andrew, what have you been up to?
I personally haven't really been up to much that we're not going to talk about later in the show. I do have two small things. One, if you're going to be in Vegas next Saturday on the 2nd, and you happen to be going to see the Devil Wears Prada and Beartooth, I will be there, so hit me up and let's hang out. And two, I actually did dabble in something. I forgot about it until this morning. I did dabble in something that I meant to talk about that I kind of liked and had fun. Now, me and my cousins we had downloaded Bomberman before, and it's just classic Bomberman. There's 4 people in a corner, and you're just fighting each other to be the last one alive. And we have tons of fun with that, the power-ups, everything. It's really cool. There was one that was like Games with Gold, and I think it's just free now, and it's called Super Bomberman R Online, and it's you in a same thing with 4 people, but there's actually 64 players, so it's a Bomberman Battle Royale, and the way it works is, so you're in a square of 4, and it's not if you kill everyone, even if you die, you have a heart and you can come back and you can replenish those hearts by killing other people. but there's a little diagram over here on the right, and you can see the other 64 players battling it out in the squares.
That's cool.
And once the timer runs out, even if everyone's still alive in your square, you have to abandon yours. If you're not in a safe square, you have to run out of your square and get into one of the safe ones, because it starts to whittle down all the squares. So you would end up in one with like 8 fucking people in there trying to all fight it out at one time, which gets crazy hectic.
I like that.
Or sometimes I did it last time, is I ran the wrong direction and ended up in a danger square still that was getting destroyed, made it into a right square, but there's too many people in there, so ran into another danger square, and ended up in a square that was by myself. So I just got to chill for a whole round and let like everyone else kind of eliminate each other. And it was actually really, really fun with like how chaotic it gets, because this one, the newer Bombermans, I never played the OG ones, have like more power-ups, so if you pick them up, you can throw a bomb. You can lay more than one bomb down. If you pick up the bomb power-ups, instead of the bomb only blowing up one square over, it'll blow 2. If you get like the full capacity of it, it literally blows out like a whole row up and down. And so if you have multiple people laying that, there's like only so many places you can go. So it's actually really, really fun. I'd recommend trying it.
Who found it? Did you find it, or one of your brothers or something?
I think I downloaded it just because one of them had said, hey, let's download this other bomber out. Because we always look for small games that we could play for fun. We were playing like golf with friends for like a while, which is like a mini golf game. We just look for small little shit that we could like play with each other. So we got Bomberman because we knew we liked Bomberman from the OG one. And then we were playing that for a while. And then this one, we downloaded it a while ago. And the other day, Call of Duty, we had been playing and ran into just like cheaters. We played a little bit Halo. I was like, all right, I don't want to jump back to Call of Duty. I'm not really feeling Halo. Let's try a new game. Let's try this.
Nice.
And just ended up finally diving into it.
Nice. Are you watching anything?
No, I haven't watched nothing that we're not going to talk about.
But you're also still doing your Elden Ring streaming, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. If anyone out there has noticed, I didn't really stream too much this week. They've been doing construction on my street. And generally, the times that I've been playing,
they're always doing construction on your street. Every time I go there, there's somebody at the end of that block.
And I don't know what they're doing either. It doesn't make any sense. But for anyone who has watched me knows that typically I stream like late at night because I don't get home from work till like 6 anyways. But about then, my internet's been like going out and it'll be out for like a few hours. And it just does it randomly that I'm like, okay, I don't want to waste my time doing this. So I've been waiting for the weekend, which is now. And hopefully I can try to kind of burn through the game. I have been playing it on the side still, just leveling up my character and like going through areas, but trying not to fight any bosses so I could keep some of that. But
nice.
Hopefully today I should have something up, and tomorrow.
Sweet. So excellent. That's what you're up to. What I've been up to, guys, what I've been watching was there's a show on Netflix called Guardians of Justice. Now I saw it a while ago and I've been wanting to see it. And on our Last Call Facebook group, I believe my buddy Michael posted about it, and because I kind of forgot about it. And it's when you watch the trailer, it looks different. It's because I wasn't sure how the style was going to go, because some of it's in like comic book, cartoon, video game style, so I wasn't sure. And then the lead actor in it is Diamond Dallas Page. So if any of you guys are wrestling fans, you'll know that. So already my head's going, well, this can't be that good. You know what I mean? If he's like the main star on it. But
not unless he's yelling "bang" every 10 seconds.
Yeah, so what happens is it's an alternate reality where back in the 1940s, there was like a different version of Hitler that was turned into a cyborg, almost kind of like Wolfenstein or Doom. And so they've actually went into World War III. And then this alien who has this Superman origin story named Marvelous Man came down, ended the war, got rid of all the nukes, got rid of all the bombs, and they started seeing this time of peace. So he ends up meeting this character called Nighthawk, which is who Diamond Dallas Page is playing. And they're kind of how they form the Justice League, the Justice of Guardians. So I would say that this is more closely to a DC Justice League than it is a Marvel Avengers. So they end up getting a group together, and the characters are Nighthawk, Black Bow, The Speed, Awesome Man, Golden Goddess, Blue Scream, and King Tsunami. So these are all just rip-offs of other characters. And then the Nighthawk character has two people that are kind of like Red Hood and young, like Damian Wayne Robin, who go by the names of Red Talon and Little Wing. So you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was gonna say, where would you put this as far as like, is it like pretty brutal, like Invincible.
Yeah, I would say I would be on the level of like Invincible and things like that. And The Boys, not nearly as acted as well, not nearly as good as The Boys, but it's in that vein. It's in that vein of like, here's an alternate universe of superheroes we can watch that aren't Marvel and aren't DC.
It's not just like Titans,
and we'll rip people the fuck up. So the concept of the show, so I don't think this is a spoiler because it's literally the first 5 minutes of episode 1, is that Marvelous Man dies, and the concept is Nighthawk is trying to figure out who did it, because they think that was it a suicide, was it a murder, was it all this thing happening. So that's the premise of the story.
Real Watchmen.
Yeah, real Watchmen like. And what I ended up liking is the way they tell the story isn't just in live action. When you start watching it and you can see that they do it in animation, they do it in claymation, they do it in video game style, they do it like an 8-bit video game pixel art, they do it in comic book panels, and they do cool montages. So instead of watching like a lame scene, they'll skip through it in like a comic book form. So it's got huge throwback to 80 vibes.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's actually a lot better than I thought. It got really bad reviews, and I don't know why, because all the things I saw were like 3s and 4s, but like all the critics that were reviewing it, or at least the audience that was reviewing it, were giving it like 9s and 10s. So if you're into superheroes in any means, and if you like the more brutal side of superheroes, and you have any passion for like 80s vibes, then this thing is hilarious. Like Red Talon, he's like working out, but as he's on a mission, or he's talking to someone on a mission, and as he's doing it, like his gauge is going up, and when he hits the top, it goes level up, and it gives him all of his stats. So he has like strength, dexterity, but his last one says pecs, and it's like a +6. So it's hilarious little inside like 80s vibe stuff like that. That's like arcade style humor. But I don't know. I would say check it out on Netflix. As far as what I've been playing, and then we'll get into one of the other things I'm playing as our main story. But I did beat Horizon Forbidden West. I played it on the PS5, which is absolutely stunning. The game is great. The gameplay is fantastic. There's tons to do, but what I like is it respected my time. Unlike Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where I think Andrew almost stopped playing it.
Dude, yeah,
because there was
a drag.
So much to do that was just unnecessary. This game, if you do want to focus on the storyline, you can, and it's a great story. However, I would say you need to at least experiment with the exploration, experiment with the crafting system, experiment with the characters you get to interact with. Because at the end of the day, this game was fantastic. And when we do our top 5 at the end of the year, I'm sure this game will be on it. So I'll dive way more into that. But I would say if you've got a PS4 or you've got a PS5, this is a must-play game. Don't let Elden Ring block it out of your life forever. Once you're done with Elden Ring and you're looking for something that's big, expansive, and open world, I would say go check out Horizon Forbidden West. So that is the end of what are we up to. So guys, leave down in the comments below what you've been playing and what you have been watching. So with that down and out of the way, guys, let's move into our main story, and that is the Halo series has started streaming on Paramount Plus. It actually started on March 24th. It is doing a week-to-week episode so far.
Lame.
There are you want to binge it? I know a lot of people did, but Paramount Plus does need to get its subscriptions up, and to keep them there for weeks at a time, you can't drop your flagship show and be like, hey, get rid of it in 2 days and unsubscribe. So I don't mind that they're doing that. A couple people that are reviewing it are higher up in the food chain than Andrew and I are, so they've seen 2 to 3 episodes. So there's only 1 episode that's actually out. It's getting kind of right in the middle reviews, kind of around the board, and I will say overall that I actually really enjoyed it. Is it the best thing I've seen? No. The trailer, I thought, did kind of a bad representation of what I thought the show was going to be about. The trailers, in my mind, were kind of boring looking. There were some cool scenes, but it gave me an expectation that once I saw the show and actually got to see some of the action and the way they're actually progressing the story, I'm like, oh, I actually like it a lot better than I thought I was going to. One of the biggest things I really like is that the cast is a really diverse cast. There's a lot of different people you can see in this show, a lot of different talent in there. I mean, before we dive into it, what were your initial thoughts when you're comparing the trailer compared to what you actually saw episode 1?
You know, I actually really like it too. Watching the trailers, I was like, okay, you know, this looks cool. I'll check it out, but I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. I was telling Craig, definitely for sure, obviously not the best thing I've ever seen. Like, I think Mandalorian, like watching the first episode of that is a better experience than watching this. But this thing, by the time it was over, I was checking. I was like, oh, fuck, is there another episode? I definitely want to watch it and keep going. I was ready to get into the next one. That I want to know what happens. I want to keep going. I think what surprised me the most and what I liked the most about this, and I'll give you a second, take this as a spoiler. For
I was going to say, yeah, we will talk about spoilers. I mean, it's one episode, so without spoiling anything, there wouldn't be much to really talk about. So there will be light spoilers in this episode. So if it is something you do want to skip, check the timestamps and you can jump ahead. But moving forward, we are going to be talking about what was in the episode, so go ahead.
Because I like how mature and dark it is. Like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought it was almost gonna be like the Mandalorian, when you see someone get shot, they fall over, whatever. Sometimes there's a little bit darker, like when someone's eaten, but it's never anything overly graphic. But literally, it starts with like this chick and her friends, and she's trying to tell them like, "Hey, we gotta go. There's something over there," because it's kind of back in like Reach days, and they think the Covenant is like just UNSC propaganda. They don't really know what they are. And this chick literally gets her fucking head blown off. Mm-hmm. It explodes like a watermelon, like not in a fake shitty way. And for the rest of the episode, just about, the main girl that you're following, her face is just splattered in blood from that. Yeah, is splattered in blood from just that one incident. And I'm just like, damn, like that was really cool. And it was really cool to see that kind of continuation of that blood's on her face, like almost like the whole episode. It's not like one of those things where like, okay, now she's clean, like 10 minutes later. Yeah. Like they really kept that continuity. And even throughout it, you're seeing lots of people just get slaughtered by the Covenant. Like I was like, damn, I was not expecting it to be as like brutal or mature as that. I thought it was going to be more like what the Mandalorian is, which isn't very, you see people die, but it's nothing as graphic as that.
Yeah, so I do want to just put into some context. So if you guys are interested in starting it, the way it kind of starts off the show is that you start off in this this little planet that has this resistance outpost, and these characters are kind of talking about the Marines and the UNSC and how they distrust them, and they kind of bring up Spartans as like these legendary killers that, if you see one, run, because all they do, they're bloodthirsty killing machines. As Andrew said earlier, the daughter, who was actually the general of this town's daughter, she goes out with some friends, they go get high, they end up discovering this ship, and then once the Covenant starts coming in, Andrew's 100% right, it's brutal, it's an instant palette change of when we're like, oh, they're okay, this is kind of cheesy acting, it's not really, I don't know where this is going, and then boom, because the next 20 minutes of this, at the beginning of that episode, is nothing but action, because then the Covenant comes back to this town, starts ripping them apart like it's nobody's business, and especially when they do the kids scene, and they had no shame in showing that these kids get wiped out.
Yeah.
But then, then the UNSC ship is overhead, and then you get to drop down, and you get to see Master Chief and a few of his other Spartans, and I gotta say, man, it's got a look to this show, and I don't know how to explain it. It looks good, but at the same time, it kind of looks bad, but Master Chief looks phenomenal. So I do like the way the show looks and moves, but there's just something a little off about it. It's almost like when you watch Blu-rays on like really nice 4K TVs, and it's almost like you're not seeing it as a movie, you're seeing it as like I'm almost behind the camera shooting it. And I kind of got that vibe. Did you?
Christina said the same exact thing when she was watching it, and some of the things she was like, I can't tell, like, because of the way it looks, if that was like a real shot of something, or if that looks like CGI. Like, she thought this one dude was CGI. I'm like, no, it's not a CGI. Or like when they were playing poker at the beginning, I was like, no, it's just the way that this is like shot. Maybe it's the camera. I don't know what it is they're doing. And again, it doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it looks good, and I think it suits the show.
Well, and I think it gives it a very distinct look from anything else out there. You really couldn't compare this to anything, because there's nothing out there that really looks like this. So at the end, you do get to start hearing Master Chief John 117 talk, which is, if you've played the games, you know what he sounds like. This is a different voice. He's actually being played by Pablo Schreiber. I do like the voice. Yeah. I do think the look of all the Spartans were actually were extremely well done. The biggest thing, though, I do want to point out, and maybe if you thought the same, it almost could have been looked at as a sci-fi horror show in the very beginning, because once you start seeing those faces explode, legs get cut off, I think the Covenant looked really interesting and quite ferocious. I was like, dude, when she dives into the bus to try to get away from him, and then he fucking slams his head on there. And, I mean, that's out of any Jason, Texas Chainsaw Massacre scene. Rips the door off, tries to get her, and then, actually she ends up being saved. But at the end, it's a bloodbath. Master Chief says that, out of all the elites that were there, which was 20, they're dead. Out of the 150 civilians, everyone was dead, no survivors. And then you find out that the main chick, Quan Ha, actually is the last survivor of this town. We move into them going to go explore the ship and where the Covenant came from. That's when we started getting into the artifacts. So my lore for Halo is not up to date. So me watching this as a brand new show, and keep that in mind. Me and Andrew were having this conversation. This isn't play the game Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 4, insert show, play Halo 5. This is its own thing. So I was perfectly fine with them doing liberties of whatever they were going to do, and we'll get into one of the biggest controversial ones in a second. But as far as the artifact and stuff goes, Andrew, I know you had a little bit more to say on it, because you were asking me certain kind of questions. So put it in context, I guess, for anyone that was maybe confused or new to it.
I just seen some people online complaining because after Master Chief touches the artifact, he starts having memories of being like a child again, and like Halsey and everyone that's at the UNSC are kind of freaking out about it once they find out, because he shouldn't be having those memories, and they don't want him to have those memories, because if you read like the books like in Reach, the way that they created the Spartans is they stole these children, replaced them with clones that had terminal illnesses, so that way they would die and there wouldn't be any question. There's a body left behind. Took these children, experimented on them, however many of them died, and whoever was left then sent them on like brutal training and suicide missions and stuff like that. So that's all memories that have been like repressed, and I don't know if they've ever really, I haven't read all the books, I don't know if they've ever acknowledged that like any of the Spartans, because they stopped doing that later. That's just, I think, with like Master Chief's generation, maybe the generation after, but when it comes to like Locke and them, they don't go through that. So I don't know if they've ever acknowledged that he is aware of that sort of stuff that happened to him or not. And so they're getting like really kind of more into the personality of Chief and like what he is. I mean, even at 1.2, he like makes a joke because the chick asked him,
dude, I died.
She's like, is there any food on this place? She's like, well, what do you eat? And it's like nuts, bolts, computer chips,
I thought that
something like
funny.
that. And so you're seeing his personality and then seeing him remember these things, and he's like very like distraught about it. Like it's really kind of weighing on him having these memories, and he can't figure out why or even what they are, because it doesn't even occur to him too. Because when she asks him, what are your memories of, he doesn't say like, I remember being a kid or anything. He says, I have memories of, I'm having visions of seeing a boy and a dog.
And what appears to be a family.
And what appears to be a family. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really seem that it could occur to him that it's his family and his memories.
Yeah, so at this point in the show is when we kind of start getting introduced to Dr. Hosley, Miranda Key and her father, and then the General. So now that we understand that Halo, they're going back to Reach, which is where their kind of base is at this point. They've taken the artifact. Oh, before we move past that, I guess, because there's one Covenant who's watching it happen, because they've been trying to get this artifact out, but once Chief does it, it activates. Right. And this one Covenant soldier gets to see him. One of the Easter eggs we missed. During that first battle, when he gets hit and his shield goes down, and it goes, boom, boom, and I went back. I'm like, dude, that's super cool that they did it, because once the Covenant ran and then he went to like the invisible, I'm like, I like that they're pulling things out of the game. So before we move into that, did you have any Easter eggs or something you wanted to get into?
I actually had that written down too, is because they do a lot of first person where you see it like through his helmet as he's fighting and stuff. And the one thing I wrote and the one thing I thought about is that hopefully it'll get the credit for that it's due, but 2005 Doom was ahead of its time with that first-person video game scene with the chainsaw that people thought was fucking dumb but was badass, and now more things are kind of doing that where it's cool to do that, and this does the same thing where it's the first person, it's almost like you're playing the game, whatever, and it's cool as fuck. It was cool then and it's cool now, and so here's looking at you, Doom.
Yeah,
because I love that movie.
I super hope they keep doing that stuff, because I'm telling you, when that shield popped and then it did the noise and it came back and then he ends up grabbing like the chain gun and stuff, I'm like, cool. I hope there's a lot more references from the game. But so when the Covenant guy sees it and runs, he's invisible. At this point, Quan's trying to like catch up with Master Chief and the Spartans. And dude, so when he runs by her, he knocks her over and she passes out. But earlier in the battle, one of them runs into a bus or the Warthog or something and like flips it over. She would have been liquefied, dude, if he ran into her and like checked her, because it's not like he brushed against her. That was like a shoulder check.
Yeah, well, I think after he did is how she got that fat cut that ends up on her head. So I'm like, okay, well, I could forgive that she didn't go flying off into whatever, but at least it did something.
Okay, so we did move into meeting Halsey, Miranda Key, and her father, who's like a high up ranking soldier, and the General. And at this point, we kind of see that Halsey is in charge of Master Chief, and she runs this Spartan. And once she talks to the General, they're kind of trying to figure out, do you need to start showing results or your work is going to be cut off? She ends up peeking in the window. We get a look at what seems to be a clone that's being grown. And then later on in the episode, we actually start hearing about Project Cortana. So before getting to the end of the episode. How did you like any of the other characters, the supporting cast that was in this?
I like it because it sets up the idea, too, that obviously Halsey, same as in the games, doesn't necessarily do what is right morally, but maybe what she thinks is right for humanity. But I did have a note written on here, too, that I really like the idea of almost like what they do in some of the other Halo games, where some of the higher up UNSC are actually kind of villainous. Like that chick that's a general there is not as good as she tries to like appear to be. Like when Chief's coming in, the girl that Quan Ha, that's the general's daughter, doesn't want to be a part of the UNSC propaganda because she's a separatist. She wants them to have their own sort of freedom. She doesn't believe in the UNSC, and so because she doesn't agree to do any sort of propaganda video for them, and is almost like, you know, if you're not going to give us what I want, which is our independence, I'll straight up lie and say the chief massacred us and that, you know, it wasn't Covenant or anything like that, because the separatists don't know what that is. Again, they feel that that's just made up propaganda. She even points that out and says, like, you guys can do anything with video, you can make it appear as anything. So that's why a lot of them don't think it's real. So they assign Chief to kill her, and he doesn't kill her. And so as the ship's coming in, he's trying to escape, and that general's saying, if he gets in the way, kill him too. Do whatever it is necessary, kill them both.
Do you think he only is starting to disobey orders because he touched the artifact? Do you think if he didn't touch the artifact, it would have been business as normal?
I'm not sure, because I'm
trying to figure out where the change of heart kicked in.
And I think that maybe that's it too. Is that's what's causing his like moral dilemma, because they do acknowledge that he did kill her mom and he killed a group of separatists
just because he was following orders.
But I think they were also marked as like dangerous and had like weapons or something like that too. So I mean, it does get into that murky gray. Like, is what I'm doing right? Is it wrong? Almost like because I just watched it the other day, like Sicario, you're doing these things that aren't exactly right, but is it for the betterment of?
Right. So what ends up moving forward is after him and her have their conversation, you find out that since she won't comply and she's being kind of what she said about helping the team out, they put out the order that she needs to die. And Chief, and I love it because it goes back to his helmet, and he looks at it and it's like order 47 or 70, whatever it was, goes in there and he needs to kill her, and he starts to have this like moral decision of like, I don't think I should, this doesn't seem right. And once they start to see, because he ends up taking out the camera, so the camera goes out and he ends up starting to they end up lowering the oxygen level on him. They try to like knock them both out. He ends up breaking out of that. He ends up helping out, and then when he comes to, Quan Ha has a gun pointed at the Chief, and she starts saying, you know, I'll kill you. And he's like, you'll never even dent this armor. It's Mjolnir level 4. It's titanium based. And then we get into what I would say is the most controversial thing about this episode. And so again, huge spoiler if you guys made it this far and you thought nothing we said so far was spoiling. But what happens is Master Chief takes his helmet off, and people lost their shit. I mean, Andrew was pointing me out to some people on some other forums that we read, but this was one of the biggest controversial things, because if you do play the games, Master Chief does not remove his helmet. It's the illusion, the allure that like this character kind of like, well, at least nothing that you ever see his face.
He takes it off in like one, I think, legendary ending, but you don't see his face.
Right, yeah. So this is almost kind of like a Mandalorian situation where like our protagonist should have it. And a lot of people were like, well, you just ruined Halo. And again, I have to say, this isn't insert show after game 2 and 3. This is its own thing, doing its own liberties that has nothing to do with the storyline. They're obviously taking heavy elements from it. So I don't know how I felt. Initially, it doesn't bother me. I don't know how much of it they're going to do. I wouldn't want him to be helmetless in every upcoming episode, but they do show him, and they do show him for a while. So and I'm going to read an article here in a second, but my initial thoughts were, as long as it's not every episode and it's not 30 minutes an episode, because these are hour-long episodes, then I don't really have a problem. I expected him to look a little more deformed, I guess, because at the end of the day, good-looking guy under the helmet. What did you think about it? How do you feel about it?
I liked it, and I thought it was fine, and I mean, it served its point too, because he takes his helmet off and says, if you're going to want to hurt me, you're going to have to shoot me here, or whatever. He's showing, like, I'm giving you trust, and you need to trust me. So it was a strong point to make with how he did it. And I thought it was fine.
It was necessary for the scene to do it.
Right. I wouldn't want to see him like that as like, oh, here, let me use this as a disguise. I'm going to take off all of my armor because the UNSC doesn't know what I look like without whatever on. A normal Joe Schmo soldier wouldn't know me if I'm sneaking into a base. I look like the cafeteria guy. Like, as long as they don't start doing shit like that, then I'm fine with it. I thought it served its purpose, and I can understand what it does. That, I mean, he does say I do have to take my helmet off, like, to eat and whatever, but I mainly keep it on because it's got my navigations, my AI, all my
run through it.
All my shit runs through here. So I was fine with how they did it, and I thought it was perfect.
And at the end of the day, the other thing that's kind of going around is that they keep calling him this chosen one. That Master Chief is going to be in this show the only person that was able to activate the artifact. So this is what The Verge has to say, and I'll put the link in the description if you want to read the full article, because it is some paragraphs long. But the opening paragraph says this: "It would have been a bold move if the Master Chief of Paramount Plus's new Halo series never removed his helmet, and we were left to wonder what kind of person the hulking Spartan in his signature Mjolnir armor truly is, as is the case in the Halo video games. Repeatedly unmasking Master Chief and highlighting the difficulty he has processing basic emotions is one of the major ways Halo tries to humanize him as he embarks on an adventure across a universe that's familiar but slightly different continuity-wise. But rather than using Master Chief as a lens through which to view its war-torn worlds, Halo instead tries to mythologize him with a story that turns him into your standard issue chosen one who doesn't know he's special." So what do you think about that? I feel like it's a little unfair so far.
I didn't take that at all, too, because they even do a cut back to I forget what they call it, but the high world for the Covenant, and I forget who it is that she's talking to. There's a human girl that lives with the Covenant, and she's talking to one of the higher ups. I think it's Mercy that she talks to, and he says at one point that the soldier or whatever said that he was able to activate the artifact like you could.
Yeah.
So maybe it's only humans that could do it. So that's why I don't think that article is fair, because they acknowledge that girl knew where it was, and that if she were to touch it, that it would also be able to turn on. So I don't think that they set him up in this as a chosen one at all. It's more almost like he just happened to be at the right place at the right time, that he's the center of what's going on. But I don't feel that it set him up as the chosen one at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But again, though, maybe this article's coming after a 3-episode review, you know what I mean? We've only seen number 1, and maybe it does move into that kind of way. But that is kind of where I want to end it, unless there's anything else you want to talk about the episode, because, I mean, they do talk about the Cortana project at the end when because he ends up powering up the ship with the artifact, because at the end they have all the Marines come on him, and even the Doctor's like, I'm superseding these orders. You know, all the other 3 Spartans,
that part was cool.
Part of the Silver Team, he's like, if they try to hurt Chief, you hurt them. And like, they were getting to the point where people were like, okay, what's happening here? But at the end, he was able to power up the ship and take off. So at the end, the way it ends is they take off, and we're like, okay, because at the end I was like, dude, I'm ready for more. Like, yeah, I mean, this show to me was better than I thought, and the way it ended, I'm like, dude, I'm gearing up. I'd imagine that it's probably 8 episodes like everything else that comes out, but I'm like, I'm down. I'm ready for another one.
I think the only thing that I was thinking when I was watching it too that I would have liked more, because they do use the like Halo like theme song, like the hymn at like one point. I wish that they would have used that as the credit song, because the credit song was like something that was all right. The credits are cool because it shows like a man like turning into dust, but then when he's like reformed, he's reformed with like the armor and stuff like that being put together. I was like, that would have been really cool to him over it, because then you're hearing that like nostalgic. You already get nostalgic every single time you hear that song. So that would have been, 30 seconds an episode, and that I think that would have been the better fit for something, I think. But other than that,
looking forward to the next one?
I'm ready for the next one.
And I will say, if you guys are interested in checking it out, either you can do it right away, you can pay for it, or when you do Paramount Plus and you want to sign up, they do give you a 30-day free trial. So I would say if you're waiting, maybe wait for all the episodes, because my buddy Kyler hit me up and he's like, should I check it out? I've been wanting to watch it. I'm like, well, if you don't want to pay for the service, because I keep Paramount Plus because I love my Nickelodeon. I've run through Hey Arnold, I've run through my Rugrats, I run through all that stuff. So I had Paramount Plus to begin with. But if you want to wait a few weeks and wait for it all to come out, then or the last 2 weeks or something like that, then get the 30-day trial, binge watch it, and then decide if you want to keep Paramount Plus. But that's probably the way I would do it if you're not already a member of the streaming service.
I borrowed my brother's.
Oh, did you? Yeah. So, if your opinions were different from ours, leave it down in the comments below. At the end of the day, I liked it. I'm looking forward to episode 2. End of the day,
I like it. Ready for more.
So leave it down below if you guys disagree. Tell me if there's something maybe we missed, we should have talked about a little bit more. As far as the action goes, I was impressed thoroughly. As far as the acting goes, it's better than I thought. And as far as the look goes, that's kind of where I'm still on the fence. But I think deal with it. I think as far as what I care about, Chief looks fantastic. So
yeah, no, I thought it was great.
Nice. So let's move into story number 2, and that is that there are some 2 good games that have dropped recently that Andrew and I are both currently checking out, and one is Tunic, and the other one is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And currently, Tiny Tina got an 8 from IGN. Tunic got a 9. So keep in mind, these are just first impressions. These aren't end of the day reviews. Andrew and I don't think have even put higher than 10 hours into this game between the 2 of us. So these are first impressions. If you are looking for something that's not Elden Ring, if you are looking for something that's not big open world game like Horizon Forbidden West. These are 2 games that Andrew and I have been diving into. So as far as Tunic goes, that game is the older one. It came out on March 16th. It's published by Finji, and it's developed by the Tunic team. This is the game that Andrew has been playing and diving into, so I'll let him kind of give his thoughts and opinions and where he stands on it.
I'm glad this game finally came out, man. I was so tired of seeing like trailers and whatever. Like, we've been seeing this game for a while, and I mean, I'm glad I guess they took their time because it is good. I think it's like a good mixture of Death's Door and The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Like, the world's like kind of bright, bubbly. The art style's good. There are some darker areas in some of the dungeons that you get to. It is, I guess, in a way to compare it, something you'd have to compare it to is Dark Souls-esque, the same way Death's Door is. That it doesn't tell you where to go. You just start the game and you just start wandering, and you kind of have to figure everything out yourself. It doesn't really tell you what to do, doesn't tell you how to play, doesn't tell you what anything does. You come across signs and even like items. You'll come across an item. I have a couple that I have no clue what they do because it's written in this weird language that I don't know if it's like the language of the fox, the language of the gods, or something like that. But it plays really, really well. I'm actually really enjoying it because it does have that classic Zelda vibe. Like, you start off with not the sword, you get a stick, there's bushes and grass and stuff that's like in your way and you can't get around it or anything. And you later on, once you find the sword, that's how you end up opening that pathway. And it's just classic, the same way Zelda would be. You can't get through the bush because you need the sword. It does have really good like accessibility options in there, because I did end up restarting it because there's one achievement that's missable and you have to kind of get to a harder area of the game to do it. So I actually restarted what I was doing. In the accessibility options, if you're not looking for a challenge or anything, you can have infinite stamina on, and you can also have on that you can't die, but you get hit, which is like annoying too. So like, there was parts where I'm doing it where there's too many enemies and I couldn't get around, so I'm getting hit and I'm getting stun locked, but I'm just swinging the stick away, and it took like 10 minutes. I'm like, fuck, man, get out of the way so I can hurry up and get this thing. But there's a weapon that they want you to get before you ever get the sword, and again, you could try and do it normally. I just turned on the cheats for it, which made it like super easy, and then went back to playing like normal. So I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. I really...
Wait, how much was the point? What did you go for?
I think it's like 50 or 100.
Oh, okay.
Cool. It was a good one. It was a good one.
Right.
I think what I really like the most about this too is I really like that it feels like an easy playing. Like, when you're playing it, like, the music isn't anything crazy yet so far. Like, it's almost kind of that like lo-fi chill step. And I really like it a lot because I'm really into that sort of music. I almost wish, though, with the kind of care that they would have put into that, with what they're doing with this game, that they would have... It's not that stuff isn't memorable, but it's not like Legend of Zelda music. And if you're going to emulate a game, like, for me, I'm huge into video game soundtracks. You could put on... if it's anything I played before, usually I'll like catch it like that. Mm-hmm. That I would have liked to see if you're putting that much effort into creating something that's like that, why not do something like that with that soundtrack that like really kind of hits too? So I feel like that's the one thing. I really like it for what it is, but could have amped it. I think one of my favorite things about this game, and I was showing it to Craig, is you pick up pages that is a manual. It's almost like a game manual, like from OG, like Nintendo, Super Nintendo games. When you would open it up, that's exactly what it looks like. Some of the things are in that Fox language. Some of the other things are in English, so it kind of gives you basic hints maybe on like where to go. It doesn't tell you what to do, but it's like written down. It'll say like Eastway, guard stock, whatever, so you kind of know what to look out for. But even a roll, it just says hold A roll, but it has like a picture of the fox, and it's all this like hand-drawn, like cool looking art, and it looks really, really cool. Like, I'm really loving what they're doing with this game, and I just can't really wait to put in more. I've only played it for the sake of the show because I wanted to talk about it, but this is definitely something that's got to wait till after Elden Ring. But I'll probably do this game next before I do anything else.
Nice, yeah, because that was a game I know we had our eye on it for a while. They showed it off a while back, and I know for a minute there was a demo you could do, and I downloaded it. I remember telling Andrew, but we're both like,
I didn't play because I wanted to wait.
Yeah, no, let's just wait and play it. Good. So I'm glad you're having fun, man. Are you gonna stream it at all?
I might stream it once I get finished with Elden Ring and I kind of really set up, but I don't know, because sometimes I tend not to play games as much. Like right now on Elden Ring, I'd probably be a lot further than I am, but I want to stream it, so this one might just be a cruiser. I don't know. I haven't decided.
Sometimes you need a good cruiser. Nice. Yeah. So as far as the game I'm playing, it is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which dropped on March 25th. So it actually just came out yesterday in its entirety, because you could have played it on the 24th at like 9 o'clock because they were going on like the European time. So it is developed by Gearbox. It is published by 2K Games. It is the successor to Borderlands 2, the DLC Assault on Dragon Keep, and it's essentially Borderlands mixed with Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if you guys are familiar with Tiny Tina's old the Assault on Dragon Keep, that was something that recently you could have gotten for like $2.99. So a while back, Geno and Deandra and myself played it, got us into the mode for it. This new one is its own game entirely, so it's not just DLC. This is a full-on new game. So their version of D&D is called Bunkers and Badasses, and it's ran by Tiny Tina, which is really cool because she's voiced by Ashley Birch, who is the same voice of Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West. So it's kind of cool to hear her in one game, who I would argue is probably going to be up for Best Voice Actor at the end of the year, and then hear her do Tiny Tina, which is a night and day difference in terms of talent and the way it sounds. So, and what happens is you're with these two characters that crash land on her place, and you're playing Bunkers and Badasses. They're calling you newbie. From your point of view, this is how you see the world. It opens up with a cinematic cutscene where you guys are playing the game, and you're beating the Dragon Lord, who is voiced by Will Arnett. So at the end of that mission is where the new mission starts, and you guys are rolling up these new characters. So this is where kind of the D&D aspect of it comes into play. So there's 6 different character classes that you can play. It's not like you're playing Borderlands and I'm playing Brick or I'm playing Zero. You're gonna pick your class and then kind of customize them as it goes. So the first one is the Berserker, who is kind of a hitter that is using ice-infused damage. The second one, which was what I ended up picking, is the Clawbringer, and they focus on fire and lightning damage, and they have a Werven companion. The third one is the Graveborn, who uses dark magic. It'd almost be kind of like the Necromancer class. The next one is the Spell Shot, which is what my brother ended up picking, who I'm playing the game with, who is kind of the, like they call it the gun-toting wizard, but yeah, it'd be more of the wizard kind of class if you guys are familiar with that. The next one is the Spore Warden, which is kind of like the druid of the game. And the next one is the Stabomancer, which is what I believe Cien picked, and these are like sneaky critical hit focus assassins. So this will be like your rogue from the D&D, and it's awesome, man. When you start building your character, not only do you get to pick like a background that lets you get to decide where you want to put more of your points, but you're going to start plugging in your stats, and then the game starts, and you're jumped into a map, and you're going to start playing the game. And the big difference between, I mean, it shares a lot of similarities with Borderlands. You get to pick your 4 guns and things like that, but the guns are kind of like the first one is like it's like a crossbow, but it's still a gun. So they kind of put like fantasy flavor on it. But you also get a melee ability. So you get your 4 gun slots once they all open up, but you're also going to start with a melee weapon, which can switch between like axes, swords, and things like that. And then you also get a spell slot. So instead of throwing like a grenade that you would normally do in Borderlands, you can get like an ice spell that shoots out an ice beam and freezes your opponents. Or you can throw a Hydra head that starts attacking all your opponents. And your shields are called wards. So the ability for them to just kind of shift over what you knew about Borderlands into this is extremely funny, because they use all this D&D slang, but like in funny terminology that would make make you laugh. They make jokes out of all this kind of stuff. So the classes are great. The writing so far has been one of the coolest parts. Like they know what they're doing. This is obviously like the 6th version of this style of game that they've done. The gameplay so far is really smooth. I've been seeing some people talk online that they've been having issues with multiplayer, but we were online. Andrew was in a party with us, and me and Geno.
Yeah, it sounded like you were.
Yeah,
fine.
we were playing for about at least it was probably 10. I think we got off around
I
almost
could have been
1.
watching you if you were streaming it.
Oh, you know me, I'm not a streamer. But so far, I haven't had any issues with the multiplayer. And this is a game that you should be playing in multiplayer. I mean, can you play it by yourself? Yes. But that's not the point. The point is get a 4-player party if you can, at least 2, and play it. And the overworld is one of the coolest parts. So when you're done with your missions, you get sent to the tabletop, which is the board game that you guys are playing on. So you get your character, they have these oversized heads, and you get to run around, and you actually get to explore the map that way. So you can actually unlock new passages to get to new places. But then once you get to a certain spot, then you would enter it like you would, and then that's when you get to play the game. But they have what's called random encounters, which is a thing in D&D that people like. If you're walking in tall grass, almost like a Pokemon, a guy will pop out, and you can either get into a battle with them, or you can just smack them and destroy them. So it's got a lot of funny aspects to it. If you're a big D&D fan, that you're instantly going to recognize, and if you're not, hopefully it's something that kind of turns you on to that. So at this point, I'm a level 7 in the game. So again, we're not crazy far into it, but I would say check it out. It's getting good reviews. It's extremely well written. The combat is smooth. If you're into games with loot and that have RPG mechanics, then I would say this is the game for you. I know we're playing hopefully a big session tomorrow where I get me, Geno, Cien, and Raimundo on there. So for the 2 games that Andrew and I have been looking at, I would say, if you're looking for a good single player game, check out Tunic. And if you're looking for a new multiplayer game where you can explore and you can do fantasy elements, shoot magic, shoot guns, follow a pretty cool, interesting storyline, then I would say definitely check out Tiny Tina's Wonderland. But you have any questions on Tiny Tina?
No, but I don't know if we mentioned before, Tunic is on the Game Pass. That did come out day 1 on the Game Pass. And I don't remember ever seeing anything.
It really snuck in there. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Yeah, and that came out on the Game Pass. So one of these games is free. So
definitely check that out, guys, and let us know what you guys are playing and if we should check out anything that you guys are smashing
I think
through.
maybe I'll try Tiny Tina, but that's maybe like a back burner game. So I got like 3 others I got to play.
And it is a game that will be on sale. I mean, right now, if you're not looking to spend a full $60 on it, then wait. I mean, it's going to be there for you. There's a lot of good stuff out there right now to play. But if you're looking for something fresh and a group game, like you and your family can get together and play, it's hilarious. We're having a blast. I mean, every time we go in, there's like. They do like all these D20s that you can find hidden in the levels that will give you experience boost. How like most games will do like audio logs, like BioShock. So in this one, they're called lore spells, or they're scrolls, but they're audio scrolls. And like one of the achievements you get for finding one is they haven't invented podcasts yet. So there's just a lot of good, crude humor in these kind of games. So if you're looking for something funny to play, that kind of makes fun of the genre, then check it out. Because so far, I mean, again, I'm a level 7 Clawbringer. I'm having a blast. One of the abilities that I have, so you get 2 different kind of power moves. One of them, I jump up and I do this huge slam with a fire hammer. The other move that I get is I can throw the hammer down, and as it locks down, it makes an AoE of lightning damage. And then like Thor, I can summon it back and then get going again. So, I mean, it's got a lot of fun in there. And if you guys are looking to check it out, I would definitely say just do it with a friend. So that's everything with that. Yes.
Yep.
All right. So let's move quickly into ripping it up. So Andrew, what do you got for the kids?
I'll go first. Sony, the big rumor right now is that Sony finally is set to unveil what Spartacus actually is next week. Now, for those of you that are not in the know, that is supposed to be their big counter to Game Pass. Now, I'm going to kick it over to Craig because he actually has the stuff in front of him that he could break down what the leak was, even though we saw some new stuff today, but this is what was rumored before, so Craig?
Yeah, so Spartacus has 3 different tiers. This is going to be what they're doing to combat the Game Pass. So the first tier is the Essential at $9.99 a month, which will give you the PlayStation Plus benefits, free monthly games, online multiplayer, and PS Store discounts. The second tier is called Extra at $12.99 a month, which gives you everything that the previous one did and gives you download PS Now games. The last one is called Premium, which gives you everything prior, and it's at $15.99 a month, and it will also give you classic games library, first-party game trials, and is going to give you games starting as far back as PlayStation, PS2, PS3, and PS4.
Now, the reason I'm actually more interested in this, because even though I don't have like a PlayStation 5, is I'm just interested in the conversation around it, because you do see a lot of people out there that praise Game Pass, but there's a lot of people that knock it too, like, oh, what it does for games. This is a Game Pass game now is almost like a bad term, like that's why it's free, is because it's going to Game Pass, so it's not a good game. Or even, I hear lots of people out there saying like, oh, it's not sustainable. They got to be hemorrhaging money. They're not making money off of this. They're, this and that. I just kind of want to see where the conversation is going to go once PlayStation does their own thing, especially after PlayStation was one of the first people that were saying, oh, some sort of plan like that isn't sustainable. They didn't even want to do like something like EA Access originally because it wasn't in line with their vision. So it's interesting to see what they're going to do and see how that narrative kind of turns as it does, or see if they could even compete. Because even seeing all of that, do you really want to pay that much just to play old games, because there's nothing on there about like where you're getting like day one games. Yeah. So it'll just be interesting to see what the two do, because competition breeds innovation. So
so I'm looking forward to it, because it is one of those things that Sony is moving in that direction, and I'm sure next week when it pops up, I mean, I'm sure we'll address it next week and see actually what the claim was. So my riff, guys, is that if you're a Ghostbusters fan, there is a new game coming out called Spirits Unleash, and it is a 4v1 co-op game that lets you play as a ghost as well. So if you guys are familiar with games like Dead by Daylight, this is kind of what it is in terms of the gameplay. But once you see the trailer, I gotta say it looks a little more polished, I guess. So this comes from Engadget, and it says, a new Ghostbusters game has been revealed and is set to land later this year. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed is a 4 vs 1 multiplayer title from IllFonic, the studio behind Friday the 13th game and Predator Hunting Grounds. If you're familiar with those two games or Dead by Daylight, the basic premise of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed will feel familiar. So my first red flag is, as much as I enjoyed playing Friday the 13th, I don't think anyone does anymore, and I don't remember anybody really praising Predator Hunting Grounds. I know Dead by Daylight is still huge, because I see those DLC packs all the time, but I don't know if that style of gameplay is still demanded, because what was the Resident Evil game that fell off? It was the same 4v1 kind of thing that we did. Whatever it was. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it was like Rebirth or something. Yeah, that fell off too. I didn't really play that one that much. As far as like asymmetricals, Dead by Daylight's really been the only one that's kind of gathered that cult following, and they've kind of done it right. I actually enjoy that. We play that like as a family sometimes too. The only problem is sometimes it just takes so fucking long to like get into a game. Is really my only problem with that game. Other than that, I have a lot of fun playing it. Friday the 13th was fun to an extent, but then it doesn't run well, and it's not explained well. And there's a lot of issues with it, and same thing with Predator. So I don't know if I would have had as much faith in it. So I saw the trailer, and the trailer
looked clean.
The trailer, when he was describing it to me, I was like, oh, that doesn't really sound that great, especially coming from those studios. But after watching the trailer, I was like, oh, this actually looks really good, and I want to try it. This looks like it's a lot funner, and this looks head and shoulders better than what they had put out with the previous two games.
Yeah, because like I said, it looks way more polished. So, I mean, I was skeptical at first, especially knowing who was making it. But once you see that trailer, I mean, and it may not be for you. You could look at that trailer and think it looks like dog shit. I looked at it going, oh, wow, this looks like they take what they do very well, and it looks like they're finally doing it. It's almost like the next step is here, because it looks a lot better. But I know when you're watching the trailer, it ends up showing that when you're playing as the Ghostbusters, Winston is kind of running the Ghostbusters house, and he's the one that's kind of giving you the missions. But you also got Raymond in there, and he's running like this weird like shop that still like specializes in like weird artifacts and things like that.
Well, I think he does that in the new movie, and we haven't watched that one, but I'm pretty sure that's what he does. So cool. Okay. I think this is linked with the movie. So seeing that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So, and I do like the fact that you can play the ghost, because what they're kind of go on to say that you can do is you're going to use the PKE meter to detect ghosts, and then you take them on with the proton pack, particle thrower, and the ghost trap, and then there's just a bunch of different kind of things you can do in game. So it is set to come out, I think, by the end of the year. So I'm sure we're going to see more. So I put this on our Facebook group too. This was something that almost slipped under the radar. So it is just me putting on your radar. So I want to make sure if you guys are a fan of any of those type of styles of games, you guys are familiar with it, and you can check out the trailer and you can kind of make your own decision on that. But I did want to bring it to you guys' attention. So We are getting long, but we will answer the last. We'll go into questions of the week. We have one, so I don't want to skip Talha Kasim because he's one of our boys. So this question is from him, and he writes, "Great up, guys. Could you guys share your thoughts on the Batman film in the next ep? What was it you guys liked, and how? And what could they have done to make it better? I absolutely loved it, by the way." So the reason we were hesitant on doing this is because we do have a spoiler cast coming up that I want to dive into that does talk about Batman in its entirety, because I think that is something in a 3-hour movie, give or take some time, that is something we can rip apart and talk about and say what we like, say what we didn't. So quickly, we'll kind of go over in a non-spoiler way our initial thoughts on it. Andrew, I know you loved it, so what do you want to gush about?
I do love the movie. I thought it was absolutely great. And I think now that I've kind of like sat on it maybe like a little bit more, because before I was saying the only one that would have been better is Dark Knight. I think I like this movie more than Dark Knight now that I've kind of like really sat on it. Because this is a movie I've been thinking about like every day. Every time I talk about it with somebody, I'm like, I really want to watch it again. Like, I almost want to go see it in theaters again. I set up my Fire Stick today, so when I get home, I'm going to see if I can find a good copy and just like rewatch it.
Admitting the piracy, my man.
I'm not admitting nothing. It's a legal gray area, but I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I'm excited for like the future of what they do with it.
Yeah, I think it was clever that they went with the Riddler, and I liked that they used a Riddler, especially when you watch the trailer. Like, he was definitely the guy that you were thinking is stealing the show. As far as like where I'm going to rank it, and I was having this conversation with some people, it's like, I think Dark Knight is the better Batman movie. I think this movie is one of the best, dark thriller suspense, horror movie that has Batman in it.
With detective.
Detective mode. So I loved it. I thought the fact that, because...
Best version of Gotham.
Yeah, so again, I'm not going to say any spoilers, so I won't say anything that's in the movie. I thought what they did with the Riddler was really cool. I thought his tempo kind of changed in the third act. I think a lot of people are going to be super impressed with the way Colin Farrell portrayed the Penguin. I'm lukewarm on the way this version of Catwoman. I mean, I know some people are praising her, some people are hating her.
I loved her.
I'm about in the middle with her. John Turturro as Falcone, I thought was a pretty well done job. There are a lot of questions. Like, most of my friends have now all seen it. There are things in it that I don't don't make sense to me, where I'm like, why this and not that. And when we do the spoiler cast, we'll dive into that. So if that's something you're interested in checking out, check it out when it comes out. But overall, I would say that for as long as this movie was, and for the new interpretation that we got of Batman, it's sitting at least at a 9 with me at the moment.
I think it earned its 10 out of 10 for me.
10 out of 10 for you? Awesome.
I loved it. I truly love this movie.
Yeah, so I would say if you haven't gone to see it, anybody that's listening to this, go check it out. Make sure you don't have a drink with you, because it's a long movie, so you got to hang in there. So you don't want to be running to the bathroom. So at the end of the day, though, I would say I really loved the movie, and definitely go check it out.
For sure. If you haven't seen it, stop waiting.
Yeah. So, guys, that is the end of episode 126. Join us next time for episode 127. Until next time, guys, my name is Craig Perales. This is Manager Montemare.
All natural and right for the drinking.
Cheers. So, okay, after seeing that video, though, if you had to be a bug, what are you picking? And it can't be a spider. Because I feel like a spider would be like a natural thing that would just be at the top of the food chain for insects and shit like that. Well, they're not really insects, they're like arachnids, but what are you taking?
I don't know. It's really hard to break down, because then you have to... I look at it from two perspectives. Do you want to be top of the food chain, or do you want a longer lasting lifespan? Like, what kind of bug, like a worm? How long does like a worm last, or like a cockroach last? They don't really do anything, and they're kind of just hanging out, like living their life.
Their best life, the best them.
But then you're just a fucking praying mantis, eating ass and taking names.
But a praying mantis, I feel, would be on the top of that list.
Yeah, because
if you can put them into the same group, because I know it gets weird when you put like scorpions in there. I feel like that would be something that's doable. But if you're even like the queen ant, that's probably a pretty lavish life.
I thought that it wasn't, because I thought that...
She just gets fucked all day and sits there and doesn't do anything?
Yeah, once she stops, they just, like, throw her out and, like, let her die and then bring in, like, another one. I wonder...
What about, like, just a big-ass blind army ant?
I'm trying to think of, like, some sort of, like, tropical bug. Like, I know I'd want to be in a tropical area. Maybe, like, a big grub that just lives in, like, a tree or something. Like that one that fucking Bear Grylls eats on that episode. And it's like fucking massive or whatever.
Just a fucking piece of shit mosquito in like South America.
Oh,
South
man.
America running around just fucking being a little pain in the ass.
Dude, I fucking hate mosquitoes.
They're the worst.
I think I'd rather be that than a gnat, though.
Yeah, what are you gonna do with a gnat? Just eaten by a bat?
Imagine being a mosquito, but like during dinosaur times, and then you're stuck in that sap for like a million
The
years.
amber sap.
Yeah.
It's like amber sap.